Positively Kansas is brought to you in part by Patrick and Yolanda J. Roberson of Destrehan, Louisiana, bringing you this week's segment of My American Dream.
The following program is brought to you by TZ Productions, celebrating KPTS's nearly 50 years of community support in South Central Kansas. Great starts here on KPTS.
Brought to you by Central Security Group, your experts in home automation, security, and peace of mind. View video on your smartphone and control your home's lights, locks, heating, cooling, and more. Security app compatible with Apple Watch and Amazon Echo.
Program support provided by the F. Price Kosman Memorial Trust, Entrust Bank trustee, bringing you the Kansas Wild Edge segments on Positively Kansas.
It's time for Positively Kansas. Coming up, this Wichita music teacher shatters the glass ceiling in a way once considered unthinkable in conservative Kansas, and the nation has taken notice. Learn why her lesson plan is as much about acceptance and understanding as it is about band and orchestra. Also, all systems go. Florida may have Cape Canaveral, but Kansans are reaching for the stars too. We'll visit the launch site in Sumner County where some of the nation's top Rocketeers blasted off in a collegiate competition. Plus, this Kansas man is a national champion of wheelchair tennis. Discover how he became the best of the best and how his life story is an inspiration to people around the world. I'm Sierra Scott. Those stories and more coming your way. Positively Kansas starts right now. After quietly going about her business teaching kids for decades, a Wichita teacher suddenly achieves national status and acclaim. She's being recognized for proving that in being different, she really is just like everybody else. And it's a lesson she carries forward to her students. Here's Anthony Powell with the story.
You guys, rise up.
Teaching music has been one of the high notes of Stephanie Byers' life. She's been at North High since the early 90s, but all of those years have done nothing to diminish Byers' passion for her job and students.
She'll really try and get in with the band or really relate to everyone in the band to really make us work together.
Well, I feel like she has very high expectations for us, and it makes us feel really confident in ourselves. And she always has that kind of attitude that if you can't do it the first time, then try again.
But trying to be happy outside of the classroom was a battle Stephanie Byers fought most of her life. She was born and raised in Norman, Oklahoma, and says ever since she can remember, something just didn't feel right. But of course, back in the 70s, it wasn't easy for Stephen Byers to say he identified as a woman. Living the lie continued for many more years.
There's a lot of emotional stress that goes through when you live a life where how you feel and identify on the inside is so different than what everybody sees on the outside, and your interactions with everybody, the conversations you have with people, the way people treat you, everything feels wrong.
It was only a few years ago that Byers felt comfortable enough to transition. The fear of losing her job had kept her from going forward. Then came a life-changing call from the district and her principal, Sherman Padgett.
We want to help with your transition. What do we need to do? And all of a sudden, what had been a hope and a dream and really wanting the possibility of became reality.
She would become the first USD 259 teacher to transition after being hired by the district. In the fall of 2014, it was time to tell the students.
Instead of Mr. Byers, it's now Ms. Byers. But all of you just call me Byers, and you just keep calling me Byers, so that's what you're comfortable with, that's fine with me. And then we talked about band.
Byers didn't want her change to be any distraction to what she says is most important, keeping the focus on her students and their music. She insists on keeping awards with her former name on the wall because, again, it is all about the kids and their achievements. But recently, it's been difficult for Byers to escape the spotlight. She's been awarded the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Educational Network's National Respect Award, given to the teacher who makes a special effort to promote inclusiveness. Her principal nominated her.
The experience and the professionalism and the overall incredible person that she is what won her the award. It wasn't hard for me to write a few words about how neat she is.
And although Byers doesn't want to be the center of attention, she knows the award brings some responsibility.
I've been given this platform. I'm going to make the most of it I possibly can, lay down a pathway for the people that might follow behind me.
Perhaps the thing that Miss Byers is most grateful for is that we're living in a time in which young people have been taught that nothing is more important than being accepting of others. And that's an attitude that is certainly reflected in her students. Many students we spoke to say Byers' courage to be who she is has taught them one of life's most important lessons.
It shows me to not be afraid to be who I am, not let people's opinions just weigh mine.
It just showed me that I can do whatever I want to be and nobody can tell me otherwise.
Byers says she's even counseled some students who are dealing with sexuality identity issues. Perhaps surprisingly, both Byers and the school say there have only been a few expressions of concern from parents about her change. She realizes, though, there's still a long ways to go in America before the majority of people will accept the transgender community. Until that time, she has this message for anybody who's not accepting.
You don't have to fully understand why someone would say they're transgender, why someone would be transgender, but treat them with kindness, be polite, the same way you would treat anybody else, because your battle and their battle may be different, but we all have battles.
For Positively Kansas, I'm Anthony Powell.
Though she doesn't talk about it much in the classroom, Byers is active in causes promoting the LGBTQ community when she's not teaching. Byers says that's something she will spend much more time on when she retires in the next 5 years or so. Kansas has produced a lot of great athletes over the years. Some have gone on to prosperous professional careers and become Hall of Famers, but others rise to the top without a lot of fanfare. Correspondent Chris Frank introduces us to one of those Positively Kansas athletes who's best in the nation and is wheeling his way higher in the international rankings as well.
I believe anything is possible.
It's Casey Ratliff's positive, faith-filled attitude that drives him to persevere and overcome.
If you really want to do it, you can do it.
Casey was born with spina bifida and doesn't have normal use of his legs. He isn't letting his disability from stopping him from climbing higher in his sport of wheelchair tennis.
Just go out and be yourself and do what you want to do.
And this Kansan is doing it, rising to the top of his sport in the U.S. and in the upper echelons in the world. Casey is ranked #1 in the United States in wheelchair tennis. And though it's been about a year since Casey rose to #1 in the U.S. rankings, he's working harder than ever here on the WSU courts to keep climbing in those international rankings.
It's a tremendous honor to be where I am today. I'm very thankful for my opportunities that have been given to me.
Casey is a Mays High School graduate and is now a freshman at Wichita State University. Here, the 19-year-old is coached by Justin DeSanto, WSU's men's assistant tennis coach.
All right, you ready? Yeah. Offensive.
DeSanto talks about some of the similarities and differences in coaching a wheelchair tennis player.
It's just the movement. That's the most important part in able-bodied tennis or wheelchair tennis, making sure you're moving to the ball right, catching it in your strike zone as best you can.
The main difference, a spectator will notice, is that players get 2 ball bounces in wheelchair tennis rather than 1. Now, this happens to be the first day the two have been able to practice outdoors because of April's weather.
Good weather. Glad to be outdoors.
More are beginning to realize the #1 wheelchair tennis player in the U.S. is from Wichita. But those same people are struggling to understand the sport, says Coach DeSanto.
To really understand what it takes to get to that level, that there are thousands and thousands of players playing in wheelchairs. Casey's gotten to 38 in the world and #1 in our country. It's a big deal.
Besides DeSanto, Casey is getting guidance from Nick Taylor. Taylor of Wichita has been playing wheelchair tennis for nearly 25 years and is a 3-time Paralympic gold medalist in the quadriplegic division. Taylor introduced Casey to wheelchair tennis about 8 years ago when Nick was putting on a wheelchair tennis clinic. Casey was the only one who showed up, but Taylor says he immediately recognized Casey's potential to play wheelchair tennis.
And I watched him for about 2 or 3 minutes, and I saw it. I saw the athleticism, I saw the strength, and he, had only been doing it for a couple minutes, and I saw how good he already was and what he was picking up on so quickly, and just naturally I knew there was a really good chance for him to be really, really good.
And one could see it takes a lot of upper body strength for Casey to maneuver his wheelchair into position to return the balls.
He's just continually got better and better and better since the beginning.
But it takes continual daily practice to sharpen the skills needed to continue climbing in international play and rankings.
He has the right attitude, he has the right athleticism, the strength, the support team.
Taylor says the public doesn't recognize how much work Paralympic athletes put into their sports.
We're training and putting just as much time in as an Olympian. We just happen to be using a wheelchair to do it.
And though the general public doesn't see this hard work, Casey's family recognizes the effort he puts into his sport.
It's been a real inspiration to our family and his work ethic, and as we see him see results of his work is really satisfying to us to watch.
Casey is preparing for a series of upcoming European tournaments which could help him climb in international rankings if he does well.
He's going to get as high as he wants to get. I mean, he could get to #1 in the world if he continues to put the time and the effort in, and everything he's showing right now, he will.
Casey has advice for other young people with disabilities who may consider taking up a sport.
Just go out there and try things and figure out what you can and cannot do, because I guarantee you'll surprise yourself.
And this WSU freshman will likely continue to amaze us as he pursues his dreams of becoming the best in his sport. On the WSU campus, this is Chris Frank for Positively Kansas.
So Casey is working to get his spring semester finals completed earlier than scheduled so he can get to Europe for those upcoming international tournaments. Now to the final frontier in a pasture somewhere in Sumner County. It's where model rocketeers dream of traveling among the stars. Correspondent Jeff Goodvin shows us where that goes on there.
And we're going to go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's out of here.
8 collegiate rocket teams from all over the Midwest converged on what's fittingly called the Rocket Pasture to compete in the 2018 Argonia Cup. Going on its second year, the competition was started by a Kansas rocket club called the Cloudbusters. Putting in weeks of work, each team created what they thought to be the best rocket design to win the competition.
We're doing base of the tracker so it doesn't slide out.
The goal is for the teams to fly a rocket that goes to at least 8,000 feet and drop a golf ball or place a golf ball on a target. It's difficult but achievable, and they need to combine engineering disciplines to prove that they can solve the problem.
What we have done is we have designed a quadcopter that is actually integrated into the nose cone of the rocket.
Oklahoma State's Nick Foster says he and his team had just spent a sleepless night repairing a broken tail fin on their rocket named The Other Things. Nick says the name is based on a speech made by John F. Kennedy in the early 1960s. The text of which Nick says motivates the team to keep on keeping on when things get difficult.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Meanwhile, the local Cloudbusters Club is made up of Kansans from all walks of life who just love to see things go up.
There's sort of science involved and engineering, as well as just making it work. It's something that, wow, I did that.
We've always dreamed about space and dreamed about, launching something up high, and that we've gotten lucky that we've got to actually pursue that.
Cloudbusters has been awarded a rare 50,000-foot clearance by the FAA. and that draws in Rocketeers from all over America to compete.
We had a two-stage rocket that was probably going to achieve an altitude of near 30,000 feet, and that's not uncommon for us because we have a really good site here and a really active club.
The group formed in 1995 to get local youngsters interested in space exploration.
And these young people are finding jobs at companies like SpaceX and the various ones. If I were an engineering manager and he came to me and I had an opportunity, I would say, man, this is the kind of kid I want on my team.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
For Positively Kansas, I'm Jeff Goodman.
The two Wichita State teams competing in the 2018 Argonia Cup took first and second in their division. The Rocket team representing Kansas State took third. This year's championship cup went to the Cowboy Rocketeers from Oklahoma State. Well, spring is the most colorful time of the year across Kansas, and in this week's Wild Edge Report, photojournalist Mike Blair takes us on a tour of the state to find the most spectacular wildflowers decorating the countryside.
The earth laughs in flowers. That's how Ralph Waldo Emerson put it, and once you've seen the spring grasslands, you know it's true. The green hillsides alone would be beautiful, but not enough. Once you've seen Earth giggling, you could never be satisfied when the land shows merely a pleasant face. Some years, rains drench the drought-tired plains, and flowers return like swallows to Capistrano. The orderly progression becomes wonderfully intense. Colors, clusters, and heights redline clipping boundaries on the flower meter, approaching fireworks grandeur. Rain or shine, it doesn't matter. Kansas comes alive with a showy display. Will you look with me and promise not to drive the roads, hike the parks and fields with an indifferent eye? Will you smile along as Earth laughs its pleasure? If so, your day will be brighter, your heart stronger as you revel in a new season. And you'll find yourself laughing too. I'm Mike Blair for Positively Kansas.
Next week, Mike takes us to the waters on a kayak to explore the wonders of Kansas aquatic life. Now let's go to Macy Johnson with this week's edition of My American Dream.
Welcome back to another episode of My American Dream. I'm your host, Macy Nicole Johnson. I am joined today with Alexis Scott. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good.
You're feeling good?
Feeling good.
So talk about the Black Student Union at Wichita State. There are a lot of people that don't know about what that is and what your role is and what all they do. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the Black Student Union at Wichita State, it's been there for over 50 years.
Oh, wow.
And so it started way back in the day, of course, where students would get together who had the same mindset, same aspirations, same dreams. But I mean, they would start out with doing like prayer meetings, you know, and what student organization, you know, would come and do things like that. But that is one key part of history that I actually just learned about by recently just talking to a former alumni. But Black Student Union, it's where not only for African American students, but those who are minorities, those who are marginalized and feel like they don't have a voice can come and to be free, to be open.
Right.
And so with Black Student Union, right now I serve as the president. It was a role that I took on, and at first, I said, okay, it's my senior year, I'm gonna relax, you know, I'm just gonna focus on grades. Yeah, it never happens that way, but I wouldn't change it for the world. We've increased membership by 63%.
Oh, that's great.
So to know that there were students on our campus, my first year as a junior, that were just hiding out in their rooms. You know, that felt like there's nothing for me on campus. There's not a place where I feel comfortable and safe to come out and to be a part and to go to events and things like that. So this year, it was what we wanted to focus on was the retention of our students. You know, we know that African American students are on our campus. We may have to go out and find them though. And after we find them, how do we retain them?
Right.
So that's what we've been focusing on.
Awesome. Okay, so now that we've gotten to this point, we've learned about you, we've learned about what you're doing. So what would you define as your American dream?
So my American dream would be for me to encourage and to bring out individual purposes for people, specifically in women. Not only just because of me and my history and my background, but I've realized that's where, you know, I excel at. You know, I can get into a room full of young ladies and all of a sudden it's just, hey, I like your dress. And then it turns into a conversation about careers.
Right.
And then it turns into, you know, a conversation about, you know, where they see themselves in 10 years and things like this. And so my American dream is inspiring, encouraging, and bringing out those key points in people that they may not have seen themselves. So the exact, you know, ways someone has brought me to where I am now is what I feel I need to give back.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And we will see you all next week for another episode of My American Dream.
Thank you, Macy, and thank you for watching this edition of Positively Kansas. If you have a story idea, please send it off to positivelykansas@kpts.org. We love hearing from you. That's all for now. I'm Sierra Scott. See you next time.
Program support provided by the F. Price Kosman Memorial Trust, Entrust Bank trustee, bringing you the Kansas Wild Edge segments on Positively Kansas.
Brought to you by Central Security Group, your experts in home automation, security, and peace of mind. View video on your smartphone and control your home's lights, locks, heating, cooling, and more. Security app compatible with Apple Watch and Amazon Echo.
The preceding program was brought to you by TZ Productions, supporting KPTS and the communities it serves in South Central Kansas. Great starts here on KPTS.
Positively Kansas is brought to you in part by Patrick and Yolanda J. Roberson of Destrehan, Louisiana, bringing you this week's segment of My American Dream. Support also comes from viewers like you. Thank you. Call KPTS to receive a DVD copy of this program for a $40 donation. You can also send a check or money order along with the program name, date, and time to the address on your screen. And you will receive a 1-year KPTS membership.